Story 1. This happened last month for starters at the Norwich-Leicester Premier League match. For context. Cast: me, my granddad, the mum, the kid, steward, and the dude sitting next to me. It was a nice day in the Norwich city centre, and at 3 p.m. I was due to arrive at Carrow Road for a football match, which I'd been looking forward to for a while. Me and my granddad pulled up to a nearby car park and walked to the stadium, passed through security, and made our way to our seats. We have season tickets, so we sit in the same place every match. After only a few minutes, we got to our seats and all was well. Or so I thought. Around 5 minutes later, the entitled mother and kid rocked up and looked at me and my granddad. Out of nowhere she said, "Excuse me, me and my child have tickets to sit here, bear in mind." The kid was around 10 at the time. This will be important later. I was confused, so I told the entitled mother that in fact I have a ticket and showed her the row and seat number where we sit. She hadn't thought of a comeback or believed it was a real ticket, seemingly, so she spontaneously grabbed it and took a long, hard look at it before taking herself and the entitled kid to a steward. She said to the steward that I stole her ticket and wanted to get me removed from the ground entirely. I was taken aback by this, and thankfully the steward had more sense than to take her word for it. So, being the Chad that the steward was, asked, "Okay, madam, if you could calm down please. May I ask, if this is your ticket, why is it labeled as under 18? This set her off. She then said to the poor steward, "I'm not joking," she said this. "This is my son's ticket, and that brat here is a liar." This is where the ultimate alpha Chad dude comes in. This dude has sat next to me for the last 5 years, and we know each other pretty well, and as it was only a few minutes to kick off, he came up the stairs to his seats and noticed the commotion growing. The dude asked my granddad what was going on, and he explained. The dude then asked for the steward's attention and explained how I have sat next to him for the last few years, and that he has never seen the entitled mother or kid before. The steward asked me if this was true, and, obviously, I said yes as it was. The steward then turned to the entitled mother, and this was the best part, asked for her ticket. She stood there, face like thunder, and tried to explain that she was unaware that she needed one as she was entitled to a free ticket as I am a parent. The steward was having none of this nonsense, and, with 1 minute to kick off, evicted the woman from the stadium as well as her kid for not having a ticket. I got mine back, and while we Norwich City lost the game 1-2, me and my granddad still laugh about this to this day. Story 2. Hey, lovelies. Thank you for your patience as I have been going through quite a lot the last few days. If you're interested and want to know what's going on, please go read the post I put on my profile. Due to recent events, DH will now be referred to as X, and BB is still BB. I wanted to keep up with the BB timeline on this subreddit, so anything recent you'll find on my profile. It's been a lot, and I am still processing and coming to terms with all of it. Trigger warning though, it is not for the faint of heart. Anyway, this excerpt from the BB Chronicles takes place just after Christmas of 2017. I had been driving a car my parents had given to me since I was 16, and it was beginning to show signs of its age. It was a used 2012 Jeep Wrangler with well over 100k miles on it. I absolutely loved that car. I had pimped it out. It was white, purple fuzzy seat covers, a purple fuzzy steering wheel cover, a bumper sticker that read, "Girl driver with an attitude," and a decent sound system. It wasn't the greatest car, but I loved it. Eventually I had to let it go as it was getting to be way more expensive just to fix the problems with it when buying a new car would be much cheaper. My dad went with me to look at a used car lot. No Jeeps, but they did have a lot Toyotas. I went with a white 2015 Toyota Corolla. It only had roughly 30k miles on it and had a minor problem with the passenger side window that could be fixed, but other than that it was in great condition. 2 days later, BB is blowing up X's phone and demanding to know about the car. X told her it was my new car because I had to let go of the Jeep. BB began screeching about how I was using his money to pay for a brand new luxury car. I told her I used our money, out of our joint bank account, and that the car was not a luxury brand and 2 years old at that point. She got pissed and demanded X return the car. Better yet, bring it to her. If anyone deserved a new car, it was her. Nice try, BB. I told her to go fuck herself and X hung up on her. Later that night, there was a knock at the door. I answered it, and it was our neighbor. He asked if I knew what happened to my car. I looked outside. What I saw had my jaw on the floor. My white car had been spray painted with bright red spray paint, and it wasn't just a little bit. It was all over the car. On the windshield was the word whore. The driver's side mirror was hanging off, and one of the taillights had been busted out. I called X outside, and he was equally as shocked and pissed off. I began crying, and he called his mother. She admitted to it right away and said I was a home-wrecking gold digger that deserved it, and if X had just given her the car, it wouldn't have happened. I went inside and promptly called the police. X didn't even attempt to defend her. He knew I would have torn into him if he tried. Police came and took my report, took pictures of the car, and took a copy of our neighbor's surveillance video. We didn't have cameras yet and went straight to BB's house and arrested her. She was forced to stay in lockup until January 2nd when everything reopened again. BB denied any involvement, but with a surveillance video as evidence, she didn't have a leg to stand on. She was given 60 days probation and was ordered to pay for the damages. She dragged out paying for as long as she could, but X told her if she didn't pay up, he would be going NC. She wrote me a check. I was able to get the damages fixed and the paint removed. Bonus was, she paid for the messed up passenger side window too because X told her she had damaged it. I won't look a gift horse in the mouth. Anyways, lovelies, until next time. Story 3. Okay, so I, a 21-year-old female, was shopping out with my mom, 44-year-old female, near the start of the pandemic. I was wearing a Christmas jumper, a sparkly skirt, a blue coat, and light-up shoes and a mask. My mom was also wearing a mask because she has to be extra careful because she suffers from asthma. Anyway, I went to get some pasta and sauce for dinner that night while my mom went to grab milk and ice cream. I grabbed some pasta and was choosing some sauce when I noticed a little girl having trouble getting some sauce. I helped her out by getting the sauce she wanted and handing it to her. She thanked me and went on her way. I spotted some sauce that looked good and grabbed a couple of jars. I was about to go and find my mom when someone started speaking to me. I turned around and found a man who looked like he wasn't much older than me, asking me if I could help him grab something. I was caught off guard to say the least. I am 5 foot exactly, and this guy was clearly taller than me, and I had my arms full. I calmly told him that I need to get my pasta and the sauce to my mom and will find an employee to help. The man, who I will call Confused Man, looked very puzzled and said, "But don't you work here?" I sighed, and then just left the aisle and spotted my mom, who had the milk and was getting the ice cream. I walked over to her and carefully placed the pasta and sauce into the cart, and we chose the ice cream. Then we just needed some bread and fruit. I went to grab the fruit while my mom grabbed the bread. While I was getting some fruit, I noticed a lady staring at me and felt very creeped out, but decided to just grab the bananas and the berries and go back to my mom. But then, when I was just to go back to my mom with the bananas and the other fruit, the lady bumped me with her cart, hitting the back of my legs. I stepped to the side thinking I was just in her way. But then she said, "After you finish helping that lady with her shopping, I want you to help me with mine. It's nice to see an employee who knows their place." I felt shocked by this lady, no wait, Karen, and her attitude, and while I wanted to yell at this Karen, I didn't want to make a scene because my mom was there. So I just said nothing and started to walk back to my mom when the Karen, realizing that I had dared to not worship the ground that she walks, started following me, hitting me with her cart, which hurt. She kept demanding that I pay attention to her. Some people looked like they wanted to step in, but then, "What are you doing?" My mom had come to where the fruit was because I had been taking a while. The Karen somehow did not realize that she was talking to my mom, who I bear striking remembrance to, and smiled smugly at me and said, I was just trying to teach this rude employee a lesson because she wasn't listening to me. My mom glared at the Karen and coldly but calmly stated, "That is not an employee. That is my daughter, and I would prefer if you would stay away from her." The Karen looked super surprised that my mom wasn't agreeing and tried to argue with her, but my mom just shot her a look that would have killed her 5 times over if it could, and the Karen promptly shut up. My mom pulled me away from the Karen and we paid for the groceries and then left while the Karen was complaining about us. Edit. We didn't think to call the cops because we just wanted to pay for our stuff and leave. My mom has 12 kids all from the same dad and is very protective of us. My parents are divorced. Edit 2. The only reason why my mom didn't attack the Karen was because we were in public and she didn't want to risk getting kicked out. Story 4. Let's set the scene, will be somewhat important. During college, I worked a few different jobs on campus to pay for school, 2 of which matter for this story. Job #1 was a traffic controller for the campus police department, i.e. stand in the middle of the street and keep things moving, and occasionally help out with other police duties in a civilian capacity. Job #2 was for the campus shuttle service as a bus driver. All in, I was usually working 40 hours a week at pretty low pay. One way to earn more was to work the drunk bus shift for the shuttle service. It was a 5-hour shift driving drunk students from campus to the bars downtown to keep them from driving. The shift paid $10 an hour, which was better than the $8 I would normally get for regular driving. We had 3 people working every shift, a driver and 2 security guards. I'd been doing it for 2 years at this point and paid my dues as the driver, so I mostly worked security. Same pay, just a lot less work. Overall, it was super chill, and we would basically make sure that people stayed seated while we were moving, a strict rule from the university, and kept an eye out for anyone who got too drunk. The puke bucket was definitely a thing, but thankfully only got used every month or so. Now to the story. It's 2 a.m., and we are about to leave downtown for our final run back to campus. The bus is getting full and people are already sitting on each other's laps. Enter the drunk guy. He gets on the bus and is being extremely loud and annoying. Nothing too unusual there. He then decides to do backflips using the handrails on the ceiling of the bus, but he is drunk so nearly kicks a girl in the face while doing so. The other security guard and I go over and tell him to basically sit down and stop acting like a 5-year-old. He refuses and makes a point to stand as we are trying to get going. We tell him it's sit down or get off. At this point, he gets in our face and starts with the drunk tough guy stuff. We've had enough and force him off the bus through the stairs in the back. He tries to get me to come out and fight him, but I'm definitely not going to lose my job over this, so I don't say a word. I look forward so that I could tell the driver to close the back door when he rushes up and blindsides me in the side of the face. I don't know if I have a steel jaw or if he just had a bad angle, but it didn't really affect me at all, just royally made me angry. I really wanted to go show him what a proper kicking was, but alas, we have 40 witnesses, drunk and impatient people waiting to get home, so I just let it go. Upon seeing the guy kicked off the bus and the subsequent punch, his friends leave too since they probably figure they will be in some sort of trouble. In their rush to get off, the girl in the group forgets her phone. We let them go and finish our run for the night. Once we finish up, I figure I'll need to make a report of everything, so walk over to the campus police department station next door to the shuttle office. At this point in college, I have been doing the traffic job for nearly 4 years, so I know all of the officers well. I make a report and mention that we have a phone from someone in the group. Here's where things start to develop. The phone is locked, but uses a finger movement to open it. In the much better light of the station, we notice that there is an obvious oil mark in the shape of an L from the owner previously unlocking their phone. We follow that and are now in. Not much useful info from the phone, but we do get the number and can find the name of the girl who owns it. Start to look at her public Facebook profile, but unfortunately she has like 1,000 friends, and there is no guarantee we will find our guy, even if we looked through all of them. No heck. While we are looking at her friends list, someone calls the phone. It's the owner. She wants to know if she can get her phone back. The officer is speaking with her, but doesn't mention the fact that they are talking to the police. The officer can hear people in the background and asks who is there with her. The girl is wasted and starts rattling off the first names of her friends. We use that to filter the friends list, and bam, there is our drunk guy. We run his name in the system, and now we have his address and other info. A few officers decide to head over there and ask me if I want to come along. Heck right I do. We show up to the house and can hear people making noise inside, but nobody answers the door. They have probably figured out that they screwed up by now. There's not enough probable cause to enter the house or get a warrant, and really, it's close to 4 a.m., so we call it a night. I'm so pumped that we actually found him that I didn't even care that we didn't get him right away. I went into the station for work the next day, and one of the officers let me know that they paid him a visit at his work that day and arrested him in front of his coworkers and boss. Don't know if he got fired or not, but it probably wasn't a good look for him. The best part, for me anyways, is that he had to walk through my intersection at least 3 times a week for the rest of the year, and I always made a point to make him wait a bit longer before I stopped cars to let him cross. He would never look at me. All in all, it was an eventful night at what was usually a pretty chill job. I made a handful of lifelong friends on this bus and got a lot of stories. Story 5 # The Kevin Chronicles Part 1. I apologize in advance to anyone brave enough to endure this tale of woe, misery, and one entitled individual who just doesn't grasp how the world works. This is the story of a man best described as concerning, overly passionate, deeply sexist, a little prejudiced, and staunchly opposed to self-improvement in any form. Buckle up, this is going to be a wild ride, one you won't be able to look away from. It's a descending tragedy, like witnessing a train wreck in slow motion. Chapter 1. Introducing the young Kevin. I first had the misfortune of meeting Kevin during high school. He was 1 grade ahead of me, and during my freshman year, we were somewhat friendly. He was a bit clueless, but it didn't bother me much at the time. However, he often said things like, "Physics don't apply to the real world. Those are just numbers and letters, I don't see them floating around everywhere, so they're not real," and "Lizards are the best animals to lick your wounds because they can regrow entire limbs. If their genetic material mixes with yours, you'll heal faster." To be fair, we were still in high school, but he was a senior when he said these things. Even then, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at such ridiculous statements. The red flags begin. The red flags started waving furiously when Kevin began engaging in loud arguments, even when he was blatantly in the wrong. Once, he shouted at a teacher for calling him out. The teacher told him, "You can't talk about heavy drinking in front of me. Personally, I don't care, but I'm required to report it if I hear it." Kevin flew into a rage, claiming alcohol wasn't addictive. He even argued that addiction wasn't real and was just a mindset. Then he added, "I have a special stomach that makes alcohol not affect me." Even as a 15-year-old, I thought, wow, this guy truly doesn't know how anything works, does he? Enter Karen. One of our mutual friends, let's call her Karen, was a lesbian at the time. Her open relationship with another girl sparked a lot of chatter at our southern high school. Did I think people were wrong to mistreat her for this? Absolutely. Did I, as her friend, also recognize that Karen was a bit unhinged? Yes, that too. Eventually, Karen broke up with her girlfriend and started dating Kevin, ignoring the glaring red flags everyone else had pointed out. I figured she must be bisexual rather than exclusively attracted to women. When this topic came up in casual conversation, Kevin smugly declared, "Yeah, I always knew she was straight. It's the only real sexuality. She was fooling herself. I wouldn't say I turned her straight, but there's no such thing as being gay anyway." Classy, right? That was the last conversation I had with him in high school. After that, I distanced myself from him, Karen, and that entire friend group. They were too much to handle. My girlfriend at the time, now my fiancée, let's call her Babe, wasn't as lucky. Babe's involvement, Babe transferred to our school midway through her junior year. Unfortunately, because most of the school was filled with prejudiced individuals, she didn't make many friends except, ironically, Karen and Kevin's group. I could tell you countless stories about how they mistreated her, but the gist is that they only befriended her because they wanted a token black friend. That's another story for another time, though. For now, let's focus on Kevin and Karen. If you think we're nearing the end of this tale, brace yourself. Compared to what's coming, Kevin's high school antics make him look like a certified genius. After Babe graduated alongside Karen, Kevin, and their group, there was a bit of overlap between her entering adulthood and me finishing my senior year. Through Babe, I started hearing wild stories about Kevin and Karen's budding adult relationship. These stories were like a drug. I lived for the chaos. Chapter 2. The horror show begins. Kevin quit his part-time job at a fast food restaurant because he felt disrespected by everyone, leaving Karen as the only one working. Shortly afterward, he got kicked out of his mom's house and moved in with Karen, who was still living with her dad and stepmom. Around this time, I found Karen's social media, where she announced they were trying to have a baby despite still living with her parents. One day, Karen posted a video titled something like, "My dad flips out that I'm pregnant." In it, she revealed a positive pregnancy test to her father, who responded with disappointment. He said, "Wow, you've really thrown your life away. I can't support both of you and a baby. Have you thought about the commitment this requires? Your job is about to fire you, and Kevin is unemployed. How are you going to manage this? Neither of you are mature enough, and you didn't discuss it with me first, which is really frustrating." To her dad's point, Karen and Kevin were soon forced to find another place to live. The reality of their situation was beginning to set in, though Kevin seemed oblivious to the mounting challenges ahead. The Kevin Chronicles Part 2 Chapter 3. Kevin Gets Hitched. After some time, Kevin and Karen moved out of his grandparents' house and into a small homeless shelter. While living there, Karen gave birth to their baby, Ezekiel, marking the start of Kevin's "I'm a dad" era. Babe came to me with concerns about Karen being extremely underweight. She suspected that Kevin might not be letting Karen eat enough and asked if we could have them over for dinner once or twice a week. She hoped this would help Karen gain some weight, if not for entertainment's sake, then at least for her health. I agreed. My social life was practically non-existent between college and work, and I enjoyed cooking for more people than just Babe. We arranged a time to pick them up for dinner and maybe watch a movie. At first, it was a little awkward since I hadn't seen either of them since they graduated high school. Plus, they now had a baby in tow, which I thought would be entertaining to some degree. Spoiler, it wasn't. Ezekiel, being a newborn, mostly slept or cried, particularly when Kevin tried to feed him things he wasn't old enough to eat. These incidents usually resulted in whispered arguments between Kevin and Karen. The dinner visits. The visits were awkward but also amusing to discuss with Babe afterward. For instance, Kevin once launched into a rant about how the Earth might not be flat or round, but instead some secret shape science hadn't discovered yet. Another time, he confidently claimed he wouldn't watch the new Daredevil series because, according to him, the lead actor had been fired for saying offensive things. This was despite the fact that the actor had already appeared in recent Marvel productions and was confirmed to star in the upcoming series. Kevin stubbornly refused to verify this with a quick internet search, claiming he had heard it from a friend. Kevin's ignorance extended beyond media. He was shocked to learn that at 18, I was in college, had a job, and lived independently with Babe. "How'd you do it?" he asked. It took all my willpower not to say, "By not being a clueless fool for the past few years." Instead, I diplomatically replied, "I guess I'm just lucky." That was when I realized Kevin was trying to emulate my life with Babe, but in his own misguided way. He wanted an apartment in the same area as ours, to attend college for welding like me, and even dreamed of buying the same brand of car we owned. What Kevin failed to understand was that our so-called success wasn't due to luck, but because we hadn't rushed into the white picket fence, 3 kids, and 2 dogs fantasy he envisioned for himself and Karen. Unlike Kevin's conservative mindset, Babe and I approached our relationship with mutual understanding and flexibility, which he seemed incapable of grasping despite repeated hints. The call for help. One day, we learned through the grapevine that Karen and Kevin had overstayed their welcome at the homeless shelter and were being evicted. Babe immediately feared they'd call us for a place to stay. As if on cue, the phone rang. It was Kevin. "Hey, I hate to ask, but no one will take us and our baby. You're our last option, and if you say no, I'll understand. But we need at least a roof over our heads for our baby. We'll sleep in the bathtub if we have to. Could we please stay with you?" Babe and I discussed it. I was firmly against it, but Babe felt bad for Karen and the baby, though she cared little for Kevin. We decided to set boundaries. They could stay for 2 weeks. We'd provide an inflatable bed, and they'd have access to our spare room. We also agreed to help them move their belongings from the shelter. When they arrived, we immediately noticed the absence of their baby. Surprised, we asked where Ezekiel was, and they explained that Kevin's mom had taken him for the first week. While a newborn in the house would have been challenging, we quickly realized the baby might have been the better guest. Chapter 4. Karen and Kevin wear out their welcome. One day, Karen picked a fight with me over the way I chewed my food in my own house. I was eating lunch, and she started criticizing me for chewing with my mouth open. When I switched to chewing with my mouth closed, she complained that she could hear it and claimed she had a phobia of gross noises. I told her, as politely as I could, that if she had a problem with how I ate, she was free to eat in another room. But Karen kept arguing, and soon Kevin joined in. That's when Babe stepped in. She grabbed her mini speaker, turned on a recording of exaggerated chewing and mouth noises at full volume, and stared at Karen. For 3 whole minutes, neither of them broke eye contact. Then Babe turned off the noise and said, "Now that I have your attention, please stop telling us how to eat. We're trying to be accommodating, but you're doing too much." Pointing at me, she added, "He's been polite to you both, even though he didn't want you here in the first place. You're staying here rent-free. Stop bossing us around over something as trivial as chewing." Karen ran off to her room crying. Kevin apologized on her behalf, saying, "It's just been a lot," which, honestly, we could agree with. After that, Karen apologized, but that didn't mean the nonsense stopped. The complaints keep coming. Soon, they began criticizing everything: the food we made, the shows we watched, the games we played. Kevin even started ranting about how liberal positive our environment was, and how he didn't want Ezekiel exposed to that kind of stuff. His examples of our liberal agenda: the Disney Lightyear movie, a bisexual flag in our bedroom, and a hand-painted picture Babe bought of a crying black man on a toilet hanging in our bathroom. Ironically, he had no problem with the flag in our living room that depicted Benjamin Franklin with the caption, "Tax this." Things escalated one evening when Babe, who's 21, decided to take some edibles. Kevin, also 21, begged her to let him have one, even though his probation explicitly required sobriety. We both refused. Later, Karen asked if she could try one, swearing up and down that she'd done it before and insisting she wasn't pregnant. Foolishly, we believed her and let her have a single 50 mg cannabidiol edible. Chaos in the night. A couple of hours later, Babe and I were, let's say, spending quality time together in our room when Kevin started banging on the door, shouting about an emergency. We scrambled to get decent and rushed to their room. Karen was lying on the bed, unresponsive but clearly just asleep. She was breathing normally, her blood pressure was fine, and she was slightly responsive, just very high. We told Kevin to let her sleep it off, and Karen mumbled in agreement. But Kevin insisted it was an emergency. We firmly warned him not to overreact and return to our room, though we stayed alert in case things got worse. Around 9 p.m., we were watching a movie and thought the situation had settled. Then we heard Kevin cursing in the bathroom, followed by the sound of running water. We rushed in to find that this fool had carried Karen fully clothed into a tub full of cold water, attempting to shock her awake. To make matters worse, Karen started having a seizure in the tub. Kevin panicked and began trying to undress her, presumably to get her out of the wet clothes, but it made an already horrible situation even more uncomfortable. Babe had to take over, as Karen wasn't comfortable with me being there, given the state she was in. Meanwhile, Kevin was a blubbering, incoherent mess. The real story comes out. Karen eventually recovered, exhausted and shaken. Later, Kevin admitted that his panic wasn't just about her being high. Apparently, before Karen passed out, he had tried to initiate intimacy with her while she was clearly out of it. She got confused and pulled away, and he feared she might accuse him of something malicious. Instead of calming down, he made everything exponentially worse. The next day, while Kevin was visiting his mom, we asked Karen how she was doing. She said she didn't remember much from the night before, but insisted Kevin would never hurt her. She was adamant about staying with him, so there wasn't much we could do. Still, we kept a closer eye on him from then on. Baby chaos and new rules. When Ezekiel eventually joined them, the chaos only worsened. They adjusted their schedule to be awake whenever the baby was, which meant we frequently heard them clattering around the kitchen at midnight, blasting the TV, and messing with the thermostat. Babe, already stressed, was reaching her breaking point. Since I'm usually the calm one, I decided to sit them down while Babe was at work and lay down some new ground rules. I explained that they could stay up late if they wanted, but no cooking after 11 p.m. Any mess they made had to be cleaned up immediately, including dishes. The thermostat was off limits, and they couldn't monopolize the TV when Babe got home from work. Story 6. I've talked before about my new job at a pet hotel in my hometown, where we cater to the higher income clientele. Well, here's another entitled Karen story. I was at work a few days ago and was taking weight measurements and health checking a dog in the in-facility animal hospital when I heard a loud Karen in the lobby. I opened the door just a bit, so I could hear the drama. There were 3 clients trying to drop off their dogs at the same time, but with the quarantine, the hotel is only allowed to take 1 dog in at a time, so there's a line of cars in the parking lot. This middle-aged guy was trying to drop off his husky, named Snow, but the dog didn't want to leave him, so he rubbed Snow's head and nudged her into the hotel. It wasn't a hard push or anything. But here enters our entitled Karen, who was screaming that the guy was abusing his dog by hitting it. Karen was screaming that she would call Animal Protective Services and get the dog taken away from the guy and have the hotel shut down. When I heard her scream that, I wondered where she'd take her dog then, if the hotel was closed permanently. This is the only high-end dog hotel in my town, so it's kind of a big deal to the higher income clients we cater to. Anyway, the receptionist said she saw with her own eyes that the guy didn't hit his dog or abuse it. But Karen wouldn't take no for an answer and claimed we were in on the abuse too. My manager, who we'll call Reggie, was called to the lobby and said he saw the whole thing on the security cameras, then explained to Karen that he'd known the husky was a bit shy, but needed a little encouragement sometimes coming into the hotel. Karen was screaming that we abused the dogs and were heartless people, but Reggie then said, "Look, Karen, if you want, I'll pull the security footage to prove to you that he didn't abuse the dog. We are a reputable facility, and if you insult any of our employees or our other clients, we have every right to turn you and your money away. Or we could sue you for defamation in court. Your choice." Karen was fuming. She cursed at Reggie, told him to go to hell, then gave her dog to us and stormed back to her car. Reggie told the man to come into the facility, so we could assure him we weren't going to call the police or Animal Protective Services or have his lovely Snow taken away. He thanked us repeatedly, then gave the receptionist a huge tip for dealing with Banshee Karen, as he called her. Apparently, she's known for stirring up drama concerning other clients and their dogs. I am sorry Snow was so frightened of Karen, but I gave her an extra treat when I was taking down her weight and measurements. Even with all the drama these Karen and Ken types will stir up, having time with the dogs, and having these stories to share with you makes it so worth it.